Welcome everybody, and in this video I will show you how to get the Pear Deck add-on in case that you don't already have it, as well as how to create interactive slides that will allow you to get live feedback from your students while you're teaching a lesson during your virtual classes. So let's begin by getting our Pear Deck add-on. The first thing you have to do is open up a brand new Google Slides presentation and then clicking on the tab at the top that says add-ons. And if you don't see the Pear Deck add-on here, that means you don't currently have it. So therefore you must click on the Get Add-ons option. You will then more than likely find it here at the very top. If you don't see it right away, you can always just search for it and just type in Pear Deck. Once you find it, you will then click on it and install. And then click continue. It will then prompt you to sign in with your account. Once you click on your account, it's going to ask that you allow Pear Deck to be able to access your Google Slides presentations. And once you click allow, it'll start installing it for you. And then you must click done. Once it is installed, in order to open up the Pear Deck add-on to start using it, you must click again on add-ons. Now you will see that it has been installed and you will have to click on open Pear Deck add-on here. It'll open up on the right-hand side and give you options to start creating your interactive slides. And the very first button that you will see is the Start Lesson green button. This button will be used when you are ready to begin your lesson with your students. It will allow you to get a code that they will use to sign on to your lesson and be able to interact with it while you're going through it. So there is an option here that I want to show you that will make it easier for your students to sign on to your Pear Deck interactive lesson. And if you go to the menu here on the top right corner, you will see that the require student logins setting is turned on automatically. And what this does is that it will prompt students to join in using their email or Google accounts to be able to access your lesson. If you want to make it easier for your students to join your lesson, especially for younger students, you want to turn this feature off. That way it will not prompt them to sign in using their email or Google accounts. Now you can easily get started creating slides with Pear Deck using their template library. So if you click here in this option, you will be able to explore pre-made content for your lessons. You will notice that you have some templates for the beginning of your lesson, for during your lesson, and for the end of your lesson. You also have slides for critical thinking and social emotional learning, which is something that we know our students might be needing. And you have sample questions for different subject areas. For example, for little ones, it'll have from grades K through second slides that will be more student friendly for those grade levels. You will have some slides that are pre-made for math, science, social studies, world languages, and English language arts. Depending on what you are looking for, you can start adding slides. For example, this is a slide for the beginning of the lesson. So you can click on it and it'll pop into your slides presentation automatically. As you can see under each of the different templates, you will see exactly what students will be able to do on that slide. For example, this is a text slide. That means that students will be able to type in a response when they see this slide. This is a drawing slide. They will be able to draw on this slide if you choose to add it. And there's also some draggable slides that will allow students to drag a certain object to show you if they understand the concept that you are going over or if they don't understand. This template comes with a question that you can modify. So if I wanted to ask my students during the middle of the lesson, do you understand? and I wanted to get feedback from my students to see if they understand the concept that I am currently reviewing. If you look at the bottom of the slide, it will tell you exactly what this slide will entail for your students. And this template will allow students to drag an icon that looks like a circle shape, like the one you see here, and they will be able to drag that circle to either the thumbs up or thumbs down icon to tell you if they are understanding what they are learning. You can then go back to look at other options for during and end of lesson, and you will see that the templates are different for each of these categories. You have slides that will allow you to ask your students true and false questions. For this template, students will be able to choose true or false in the form of a multiple choice type of question. If you look at the lower left-hand corner of the slide, it will describe what type of question this is, and you can see the different options here, A, B, C. And of course, because this question only has true or false, it'll only show them A for true, B for false, and on their side, on the student view, they will be able to see those options on the right-hand side of their screen. On your side as a teacher, you will be able to see how many students chose true and how many students chose false, which is something that we will explore in a moment. As you can see, there are plenty of different templates that you can choose from, and you can modify to fit the needs for your lesson. So the end of lesson has other types of templates that you can modify and will allow your students to be able to give you live feedback while you are going through your lesson. Now let's take a look at the learning development templates. Under critical thinking, you will see different types of templates that will allow your students to creatively answer. For example, you have some slides here that will allow them to interpret, draw conclusions, and or explain themselves. And so some of these slides are drawing slides where students can be as creative as they want and respond to you with a drawing of their thought process, or they can definitely type out their response or how they are interpreting what you are teaching them. There is also a particular slide that will allow your students to be able to make connections between different concepts that you are teaching them through your lesson. Moving on to social emotional learning templates. As you can see, some of these templates will be asking students what they are worried about on that particular day that you are giving that lesson. So these are templates that you might want to start your lesson off with just to get a feel for how your students are feeling that day. And so you can also do a stress check at the beginning of class. As you can see here, this stress check template will allow students to drag an icon that looks like this purple line here to indicate to you on a scale from 0 through 10 how they are feeling that day. So this is one that I think is very important for you to check on before you start any lesson, just to make sure that you are aware how your students are feeling that day, or if there is something that will impede them from learning through your lesson. Another template that might be useful is this draggable template that asks your students how they are finding the lesson challenging wise, and students will be able to choose from if the concept or lesson is too hard for them, just right, or easy. And so they will be able to again drag an icon to the option that best describes how they are feeling about the lesson. Moving on to the subject area templates. Under example questions, you will get ideas for the content area that you are teaching. For the younger students, you have a category from K through second, and it has templates that will easily allow for your students to fill in missing letters of a word, such as this one. You also have another template that will allow your students to circle for certain items, maybe that rhyme or that start with the same sound. This template will be very useful when reading stories to students because it will allow them to illustrate the story as they see it in their mind They can draw a setting, a character, a specific scene in the story, and you will be able to get that feedback instantly. You will also have math templates here in this category, as well as graphing templates for students to use, such as this one, which will allow students to draw anywhere on the slide and fill in the graphs here. There's a time template, money template. So you have a lot of options as to what templates you can use for students from K through second. Under the math category, you will have more math template options that you can use in your presentation. Under the science category, you will also have science-based templates that will help you get started with your lesson. Under the social studies categories, you have templates that will allow you to ask location questions, such as in this template, students will be able to drag a certain item to show where they can locate a certain continent. Under world languages category, you will see templates that you can use to have your students match terms that will allow you to fill in the blanks with the appropriate word and so on and so forth. On the ELA category, you will have a Venn diagram template that will allow you to get your students to compare and contrast. You also have a template that will allow your students to work on a main idea, or you can even use this as a vocabulary Frayer model type of graphic organizer. You have a template for story mapping, which will be very useful when reading novels with your students. Just to mention a few templates. So now that you have explored the different template categories that Pear Deck has to offer, and you have pulled in all the slide templates that you will need for your lesson, the only thing left to do is go through each template and modify it to satisfy the needs of your lesson. So just know that anywhere that you see a text box, you will be able to modify the text in that text box to satisfy your needs. The only thing you cannot change are the backgrounds, but anything that you click on that gives you this outline around it, you will be able to modify. If you notice, the free version of Pear Deck features are those that do not have a star on them. So if I wanted to change this slide from a drawing slide to a multiple choice slide, I can certainly do that by clicking on the slide I want to modify first, then clicking on the option that I want to use. All I have to do here is click on the choice option. I will then click next. I will type in my multiple choices. I will then click on update slide, and you will see that it'll change from a drawing slide to a multiple choice type of slide. And as you can see here, the bar at the bottom has changed. Now for each of the slides, in order for them to be interactive, they must have this bar at the bottom, and it'll even tell you do not remove this bar, because without it, the slide will not be interactive. You can have slides that don't have it if they're just information slides that you don't want students to work on. The students will still be able to see the slide, they just won't be able to do anything on it. If you wanted to create a slide from scratch, you can definitely do that by clicking on Insert, New Slide. And once you have your new slide, you can definitely bring in a background that you would like. And you can also choose to make this slide a text, multiple choice, number, or a link to a website that you would like to redirect your students to. So you have each of these options to insert into your slide. If you choose a text type of question, students will have to type in their answer. Once you have asked them the question for this slide, they will see a text box on the right hand side where they will be able to type in their answer. If you go with a multiple choice type of question, you will have to give students different choices, and you can add as many as you need. And then you will just have to click on update slide. And when you get to this slide, students will be able to see on their side the different multiple choices on the right-hand side where they will be able to choose from. If you decide to go with a number type of question, then students will be able to type in the number that they think is correct. If you want to redirect students to a specific link, you can use the website option for this slide, and all you have to do is type in the web address or copy paste it from the website that you are trying to get your students to reach. It will then give you a preview of the website to see if it's the correct address. And if it is, all you have to do is update slide, and you will be able to see the web address for the website at the bottom of the slide. Once you are done modifying your lesson, you are now ready to share with your students. So up next, you will see how to get your students to join your live lesson and how to get their live feedback. Once you are ready to share your lesson with your students, the first thing you will do to get started is click on Start Lesson. If it asks you to complete your free account, go ahead and do so. Log in with your credentials and complete your account setup. The first thing you will do is click on Start Lesson. And it'll give you two options. The two options you have is to either turn on the student paced activity mode or the instructor paced activity mode. The difference between both of these modes is that in the student paced mode, students will be able to go through the slides at their own pace. And in the instructor pace mode, you as a teacher will be able to control when the slides move from one to the next. So in this case, I'm going to use the instructor paced activity mode. And you can always switch back if you choose to, and I'll show you where to find that. It'll then give you a code for your students to log into. Students will then go to joinpd.com to join this lesson. And once they do, if you notice here on the right-hand side, I already have a window open as if I was a student. And I will then give students the code you see here for them to start signing in to my lesson. The student will type in their code on their side. And once they type it in, it'll automatically take them to your lesson. It'll ask them how they are feeling today. If you notice, once a student is signed in, they will not be able to go on to the next slide until you decide to click on the next slide. As you can see on the teacher side, you will be able to tell how many students have joined your lesson. It'll indicate it here at the bottom of the slide that I have 3 students connected. Once I know all my students have connected to this lesson, I can then start the class by clicking on this blue button. So on the teacher side, I will wait for my students to respond to the very first slide. Remember, on this slide, students are able to drag this line to show where they are as far as their focus level. Once the students start indicating what is their focus level, then you can see live responses on your side by clicking Show Responses at the bottom of your screen. You will be able to see how many students have responded at the moment by seeing the number of lines that are showing on your screen. And so I can see all 3 students have responded already to this question. So what I can do next is I can then hide the responses and continue on to the next slide by either clicking the next arrow on my keyboard, or I can click the next button here at the bottom of my screen. So as you move through the different slides, students will be able to answer by either dragging objects. For example, this question, the student has to drag the circle to show if they understand or if they don't understand. Once I have all the student responses, I can see at the bottom, if I hover at the bottom of my screen, it'll show me that I have 3 out of 3 responses already. So if I want to see those responses, I can click again on Show Responses and see that 2 students responded with that they do understand, and 1 student responded that they don't understand the lesson so far. So here would be a good point to reteach or ask questions about what are the misconceptions that they are having. If I wanted to skip forward to a different slide, I can click on the icon between the two forward and backward arrows here, and I could see all the different slides that I have in my presentation. If I wanted to skip over to this slide, I can do so by just clicking on it. It'll then show on the student's screen. Remember that this question was a multiple choice question where students will be able to see the multiple choice answers on the right side of their screen and choose what is the correct answer. Once students start responding again, you'll be able to see the different responses by clicking at the bottom of your screen on Show Responses button. And now I will be able to see how many students have responded A and how many students responded B, C, or D. And so here you have two different views. You can use the grid layout view that'll show you the different responses, or you could see the overlaid layout, which will show you the different answers in a bar graph. I can also choose to lock the screen so that if I don't want students to change their answers once I am ready to reveal the responses, I can lock the screens by clicking the button down here. You can see on the student side that it notifies them that the teacher has locked the responses for this slide. So their current answer is A. That's the one that they chose that is locked in, and they can no longer change the answer on their side. If I choose to unlock the screens, then you will see the student will then be able to change the answer again. But if I lock it, students will no longer be able to change their answer past that point. Another option you have is if you want to ask a question or you want to insert a question during the middle of your presentation to see how students are doing or to have a quick check moment with your students, you can do so by clicking on the new prompt button down here, and you can choose between some of the templates that you saw before on the template menu. And so if I wanted to insert a question that will have students respond with text, I can do that by clicking on this type of template. I can ask the student the question verbally, and students will then be able to type in their answer here. Once I start getting responses, I will then be able to click on Show Response again, and I will see the students' text responses in forms of speech bubbles. So you will be able to see between the different responses that students are typing in. Now, we entered a slide for students to be able to type in a number, and this is what it will look like. So here, if you were to have a math question posted on the slide, then students can answer with a number using this text box here. And again, when you click Show Responses, you will be able to see the student responses represented by the red circles here on a scale from 0 to 100. The next type of question that we added to our lesson is a template where students can draw to give their response. So on the student side, they would see something that looks like this with drawing tools and colors at the bottom. Students can choose between using a pencil, a highlighter, a line, text, or eraser to insert their answers here. So if students wanted to draw what the setting looked like, they can do so by choosing the pencil tool and drawing on the canvas. You will then be able to see student responses by clicking again the Show Response button, and you will be able to see what the student has drawn so far for this question. They can also use the text feature to type in the characters of the story. They can use the line to draw as well. They can use a highlighter to highlight important words, or they can use the eraser to erase certain mistakes that they have made. So on your side, again, you'll be able to see those responses live as students are drawing using text or erasing. And so this makes it very useful to be able to see how your students are responding to your lesson. If you notice when I'm looking at the responses, I won't be able to tell which response comes from which student. A way to work around that is have the student write a number or write their name on the upper right-hand corner of their slide. That way you can see which of the responses belongs to which student. The last type of question that we added to our lesson was a website link that we wanted for students to access. So if you wanted to play a game after you have gone through your lesson to review what the students learned, the students would then click on the link at the bottom of the screen. But as you can see here, Kahoot has been embedded to the students' presentation, and all they have to do is enter the game pin to join the game. Now I'm going to go over the menu button at the bottom of your screen. You have a three-dotted menu button that will allow you to make your presentation full screen on your computer. And you can also turn on student pace mode, which is what I had explained earlier, that you also have the option for students to go through the slides and be able to answer the questions on their own at their own pace. Once you are done with your lesson, you can then end the lesson by clicking the end button here or going to the three-dotted menu here and clicking end this lesson. Once you do that, it'll ask if you want to name this session. So I can name it session 1, and I can publish the student takeaways and save and end session. If you decided to publish the takeaways for this session, it'll create a Google Doc in your Drive with each of the students' responses so that students can go back and see how they did on this lesson. On your Drive, you will have a Pear Deck folder that when you click on it, it will have another folder inside named Takeaways. And once you click on a student, it'll then give you a summary of each of the students' responses for this lesson. And that is it. I hope that this tool will help you amp up your distance learning lessons.